Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm Danny Iniquitous, and we are doing a specialized 3-part series where we're starting with the Yuan Ti and ending with one of the greatest tricks a god has ever pulled in D&D. So stay tuned for that, and let's get started with the video. Now, the Yuan Ti are the snake-human hybrids, and I absolutely love the Yuan Ti. They are my favorite species to play. Everything about their history, their culture, how they act is just awesome to me. It's something I thoroughly enjoy and wish that I could always be them. If I had to pick one race to play for the rest of my time playing D&D, Yuan Ti would definitely be that species. I love them so much. Now, if you don't know what Yuan Ti are, they are snake-like people. They are a human snake entity. They are merged together through a giant process that we're going to dive into a little bit later. But they adapt that reptilian mindset where everything's very pragmatic. There's no emotions, there's no reasoning, there's no empathy, sympathy. Those things don't exist. They are devoid of those things, and they are inherently evil species. So right there, it's got everything I love. But they have a long, thorough history, and they are just one of the coolest things that have ever gone into existence, in my opinion. So we're going to dive in with how they were originally created. Now I'm going to dive into some text here, so bear with me. The Yuan Ti were once human. Long before humankind dominated the continent of Faerun, the creator races ruled Toril. The reptilian creator race, the Saruk, were foremost amongst these and built great empires. They bred the first Yuan Ti by magical means, experimenting with breeding humans with snakes and Saruk. Also, they created the Nagas and the lizard folk. They eventually fell from power, and the resourceful Yuan Ti rose up to claim their creator's power, even while sustaining the empire of Mercer, of the fragmented world serpent deity that the Saruk had worshipped. The Yuan Ti venerated the strongest aspect and the cruel and despotic deity Mercer, who grew distant and aloof. Now, the empire of Mercer is different than the god Mercer. I know they sound very, very similar, but just bear with me. So the empire Mercer was the second Saruk realm, and it was contained on the supercontinent before the land on the world of D&D separated, and then this area ended up being the Cholton Peninsula. That was the empire of Mercer. Now, this empire was named after one of their chief deities under the same name of Mercer. That'll become very, very important later on. So, the way they bred these humans and snakes together was using a specialized poison from a D&D monster known the amphibians. The amphibian poison, it was from earlier editions. If you failed that save, it would turn you into an amphibian and you would die. They used that venom, some of the Saruk blood, and human blood, and a ritual that they used divine inspiration from their gods in order to create what's called the black broth. And they fed this to these people under a ritual, and that's kind of how the Yuan Ti came into existence. Now, the Saruk are their own kind of thing. They are pretty great in their own accord with what they do. And as a creator race, we will get into that very, very quickly. But I do want to let you know that the Saruk weren't demon worshippers, but the Yuan Ti are. And this is very, very important because of how things kind of burn out for what happens. Now, the Saruk were kind of like the ultimate version of a Yuan Ti. They were almost completely snake-like. They had a snake head, and they had they had human arms with scales and claws and things like that. They were divine beings. They came out in existence because of the demon lord Mercer. This is going to go a little bit of a spiral, so just bear with me, okay? In the beginning of D&D, there was a period of time that's called the Dawn War, which is a whole big thing to get into in the first place. That has to do with the primordials and the gods and the creation of the abyss and the demon realm. At that time, the demon realm had come into existence. And primordials kind of developed and went to that area and got corrupted, and that's how you got the Demogorgon, Orcus, and a bunch of other popular demon lords. One of the primordials is the world serpent. This is the serpent that's supposed to devour the whole world. This is like the end times, Ragnarok, the destruction of the entire universe, that world serpent. That serpent reached out to the Saruk while the Saruk were still like savage animals and like barely like no real government or society. They were just kind of like just savages. They would just run around and kind of just attack and try and feed. They haven't even learned really to group together. The important thing about that is when the world serpent reached out to them, that's when they started to grow as a people. They started to become smarter, less savage, more intelligent, and that brought about how they started creating the races in Faerun. Before we continue on with the video, a big shout out to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And check us out Wednesday nights for our live stream game with critical failures. And check out our hardcore WoW channel. We just started up, so we're trying to get that used to and figure out that whole world. But we're having a lot of fun. Check us out on Thursdays. The link to all of those is in the description. Now let's keep going with the video. So the world serpent had reached out to the Saruk. And in exchange for teaching them civilized life, how to gain power, how to, survive, and genuinely teaching them the art of magic, in return, the world serpent wanted sacrifices and to be worshipped. The Saruk agreed, and then the Saruk followed suit. As they would sacrifice and follow the teachings of the world serpent had too many kind of like domains that they were being preyed to. So in regards to that, because the divine energy, that the way prayer and worship works in D&D, it kind of kept pulling on the body of the world serpent. And the world serpent, in order to sustain itself, it had to split, which is a very strange concept, and this is only something that severely, very powerful, strong gods do. But the world serpent splits into a bunch of different aspects. And each aspect is kind of like a different reason to pray to a deity. So the world serpent ends up splitting into like 6 or 7. Hold on, let me check. To 9 different aspects, right? And out of these 9 different aspects, one of them that the world serpent splits into is Mershok, the god Mershok, not the city, which is Mershok. So Mershok is all the evil things combined. And during this time, the Saruk, while worshipping the world serpent, started praying to different aspects of it and helping to split the world serpent into different deities. This ended up proving to be very, very bad, because as the world serpent split, their prayers and divine energies were going in multiple directions. So this didn't solidify the Saruk, this began to separate them. And as they started to create, because they were a creator race, they started making Nagas, they started making lizard folk, they started making Yuan Ti, all of them started to come into existence. Now, Nagas are kind of like, they're underwater really. They're like the fishy kind of people. They have fins, they have strange faces, they're reptilian in appearance, they have like scales and things like that. You often will see them with trident and like seafaring weapons. Lizard folk are obviously big lizard people. They fully look like lizards, but they're like bipedal. I like to think of them kind of crocodilian, but that's a personal aspect of mine because I like crocodiles and alligators. And the Yuan Ti ended up being kind of the in-between. Now, the lizard folk and the Nagas weren't really bred to be intelligent. The Saruk bred the Yuan Ti to oversee everyone else. And the Yuan Ti, being intelligent and smart, ended up really, really studying the Saruk and understanding what they were doing. Now, the Saruk ended up creating one of the most powerful empires ever. And this is like at the dawn of time. Like, they were like elves weren't really around. Everyone else was still in caves. Humans were kind of still primates and primitive and very like Neanderthalian. Cavemen, essentially, who barely got out into the sun. But the Saruk ruled this world for like 1700 years. They had a huge domain. That is a long period of time. Especially when you consider it with all the other things that are going on. There's dragons, there's giants, there's wars between everything going on top of it. The world gets torn asunder. The world gets reemerged later on. Like, there's a lot of cataclysmic world-ending events going on the divine level while they are ruling basically the planet, which is awesome. But when the aspects of the world serpent started to separate, Mershok started to be worshipped by the Yuan Ti. Now, Yuan Ti are inherent demon worshippers. Mershok is, in fact, a demon. He lives in the abyss. This is something we're definitely going to go into on our other video because that's really, really important for part of what's going on in that world. So, during this time that the world serpent had separated, the Yuan Ti started praying to Mershok. Mershok is, again, a demon. He lives in the 74th layer of the abyss. Later on, he gets so strong he merges with the layer itself, which is something that very few things can do. He is chaotic evil. His portfolio is predators. It is one of those circumstances where he is just wildly dangerous. In order to pray to Mershok, you have to commit violence, but it can't be for your own personal gain. It has to be rampant, violent, grotesque, and almost purposeless. If you benefit from it, it is not worshiping Mershok. That's part of the reason why the Yuan Ti are absolutely crazy. They have to do these violent things. They have to do these unspeakable, horrific things so that way they can show worship to Mershok. Mershok is also ambitious. He is scary. His domains are fate, destruction, charm, chaos, animal, plant, and any kind of reptilian, and war. Let me tell you, that is all sorts of bad. So Mershok appears to the Yuan Ti, and the Yuan Ti worship Mershok. And as the Yuan Ti keep learning from the Saruk, they see weakness. They see that the world for the Saruk is getting too privileged. They're living too high of a life where the Yuan Ti are made to do all their hard work. And further down the line. And something kind of really unique happens. Before the Yuan Ti rise up and supplant the Saruk, Mershok enters this period of, they call it somnolence. And what that is, it's defined as a state of drowsiness or strong desire to fall asleep. This happens to Mershok, and Mershok just goes dormant. He can't be reached. Now, we're going to go in depth about that and what I think happens in that regard. But when this happens, the Saruk start to kind of panic. That's one of their aspects that's now just not answering. The Yuan Ti take this as a sign from Mershok that they have to awaken him with their with their prayers. So they usurped the Saruk. They basically wiped them off the planet. They had control over managing every aspect of the Saruk's lives. Saruk just lived in castles and asked and was given whatever they wanted. And the Yuan Ti turned on them. They ate them. They stole their power. They stole all their knowledge. They tore them apart from the inside. This is wild. Understand that the Yuan Ti have a very specific way they like to fight. Yuan Ti, and I'm going to read the text that they provide here. The Yuan Ti took advantage of their great intelligence during battle, planning traps and making excellent use of their surroundings. They favored ambushes over direct attacks. If in groups, they sent their least valuable members forward first, meaning that purebloods advanced before half-bloods who advanced before abominations. And Yuan Ti favored bladed weapons. They used slow-acting poisons in their elaborate traps, but not typically on their blades. So understand that Yuan Ti also have a lot of inherent magic. They often would use spells that would cause fear, darkness. They would charm snakes. They would turn sticks into snakes, neutralize poison, suggestion, and polymorph. They did a lot of controlling spells. So understand, this wasn't just like a quick military takeover. They, in order to adhere to who they are, they had to do this in a very brutal, grotesque kind of manner. Very sick in how they would do it. They would use their magic to charm the Saruk, to fight the Saruk. And they would tear them apart, and they would celebrate their ends and sacrifice them. Kind of a lot like those ancient Mayans would rip out the hearts of their enemies on altars. Like, the Yuan Ti take a lot from that. Like, aesthetically, from the way they look, from the way they're depicted, and a lot of kind of how the theory behind brutal ritualistic religious ceremonies kind of comes a lot from that. And again, the Yuan Ti tend to favor that kind of aesthetic and appearance. Also, the Mayan people also worshipped a lot of serpents, so and some winged serpents as well. So it kind of fits in pretty well with that. So the Yuan Ti devastate the Saruk, and then they finally take over. Now the Yuan Ti learned a lot from the Saruk. The way the Yuan Ti created themselves is, as they kept evolving, they kept learning how to breathe amongst themselves. And what I mean by this is there's different types of Yuan Ti. And obviously the most snake-like you are, the more powerful you are, the more you're worshipped, and the higher position you have in life. They have a caste system, so like you don't really exceed that caste unless you go through something that evolves you into that. Now, purebloods are the playable species that you can be, where you're mostly human looking, but you do have some reptilian features like forked tongues, slit eyes, patches of scale on your skin. Half-bloods are definitely more apparently Yuan Ti. These are the people you'll see where they'll have a whole bunch of snakes for arms. They'll have a snake head, or they'll have like a head and just two snakes for arms. Like it's really, really crazy. And then you get the abominations. Now the abominations look the most like the Saruk. They are basically snake-like in like body, and they have a snake. They don't have legs, they have a tail. They have a snake head. They have regular humanoid arms, but they are stronger and more intelligent than the rest. And there are other like aspects in between all of these that kind of exist. And then the final version of them is the anathemas. Anathemas are deadly even to the Yuan Ti. They are incredibly powerful, and they are worshipped as divine incarnations of Mershok. They are 25 feet long. They're basically made out of millions of snakes. They have humanoid arms with clawed 3-fingered hands. They have 6 serpentine heads rising from their shoulders. They have like snakes as appendages throughout their body. They are scary looking, but they are so true to being an aspect, like a divine incarnation of Mershok. They devour everything. They are chaotic. They just want to destroy. They just go wild with rampant destruction. And the worst case scenario is if they win, they don't stop. They just keep going and keep pushing. And if there's nothing to kill, they will kill their own. Anathemas have to be kept so far away from the brood chambers. Otherwise, if they know where they are, or if they're alerted, or if they're not guarded from going there, they will eat entire clutches of their own Yuan Ti eggs. They hunger for them. They will eat out entire generations of prospective children. They don't care. They are bad news, but they are really powerful. So if there is one or two around, and there is a couple of specialized noble Yuan Ti houses in existence, but that's not really super important. But there is one that is rumored to actually be following an anathema, and it's very, very scary for the other Yuan Ti in the area. Now, abominations, super strong. Half-bloods, abominations were seen as kind of the highest point of their society. They are the judges, they are the political rulers, they are the generals. Every decision comes down to the abominations. Whatever they depict happens. Half-bloods were more like the spiritual leaders of the people, and they were a step above purebloods. So the abominations told the half-bloods what to do, the half-bloods told the purebloods what to do, and then the purebloods kind of did their own thing, and they're the ones that interact with the rest of the world. So in combat, you'd have a mix of them. So they would use the purebloods as cannon fodder. They would drop the half-bloods in as like shock troops or like specialized groups to take care of certain things. And if it was a big, heavy assault and the abominations had to fight, they would do some serious damage. They were all super intelligent, and they would never do a head-on attack. They would always strategize. So they were really intelligent. But the Saruk got so fat and lazy because they were been like worshipped and never had to lift a finger for literally 1700 years basically. So the Yuan Ti made quick, brutal work out of them and then conquered their lands. Mershok is in this slumber. The Yuan Ti don't know who to pray to. Their prayers are not being answered, so they start getting extreme and extreme and extreme. This causes the Yuan Ti to kind of lose power, because with this rampant acts of violence, it does cause a counterattack. They start being too crazy trying to wake Mershok, and things do not work. After a time, and this is a long time, Mershok is said to be reborn as a winged Yuan Ti avatar named Seth. This entity shows up and claims that he's the reincarnation of Mershok and that he will help restore them. He's tricky. He then starts to teach the Yuan Ti that it's not about being the way Mershok taught them to be. It's about you being subtle and being deliberate and playing the long game and being cunning and deceptive. So this causes another rift between the Yuan Ti, because there are those who worship Mershok and still follow that way. And then there are those who start following the way of Seth, and that is subtlety over all. This causes them to the results of them trying to wake Mershok cause devastation to their numbers, and they kind of fall away. And Seth gives them a way to kind of rebound and kind of work in the shadows and go from there. That is kind of the history of the Yuan Ti. Current Yuan Ti are mostly those who venerate Seth and worship Seth. That's why they are concealed. That's why they are hidden. That's why they use manipulation. That's why they use charms. They really lean into that and using cruel ways to get what they want while not exposing all of them. They really abuse the purebloods for this manner, so that way they can keep sending them out into the world, and if they get caught or anything, the Yuan Ti will go out and kill them. Like, they will make sure their secrets are not exposed. They are really, really diligent and very accounting on all their people. Because of this, they've also been very restrictive on how they breed. Breeding isn't really something you do for fun, like humans do normally, but they do it very organized. They pick between those who have the strongest aspects to breed the strongest version of themselves. They know how to breed what. They can breed anathemas, they can breed abominations, they can breed half-bloods, and they can breed purebloods, and they make brood guards, who are just these kind of wild, animalistic looking reptiles who just watch the eggs. They know how to make them, so they're very organized and depict when they make what. Because too many abominations is very bad. Too many half-bloods is still very bad. Too many Yuan Ti purebloods is bad. If you have anathema, it's bad. So they have to be very strategic to keep the balance between them. During times where they're planning for war, like in the unusual circumstance that they might have to go legitimately to war with something, they will breed accordingly in order to plan for that generations in advance. They are very, very specific on when they do these things. That's why there isn't so many Yuan Ti. That and Yuan Ti purebloods have a tendency to kill each other to move ahead. Half-bloods aren't so similar, but they will do it. And abominations, if you can do it, they would. And when anything in a high position of power shows weakness, there is usually a feeding frenzy for those positions between those who are within that caste system. So it's very, very difficult to kind of remain in power, because everything that the Yuan Ti will do will supplant that power for themselves. They are ambitious, they are greedy, and they are pragmatic, and they do not have empathy, loyalty, or sympathy. They do what's best, and they understand the greater good of their people, but they do understand that them having more power is better than somebody else. Like, it's cool. I really happen to like that aspect a lot. We're going to end the video there, as we will continue next week with Mershok, Seth, the Demon Realm, and all sorts of aspects in regards to that and what's going on, and then before our climactic end. With all that said and done, a big thank you if you made it this far into the video. Definitely hit like and subscribe. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. What you do is absolutely amazing for us, and we really appreciate it. And definitely check us out Wednesday nights on the live stream Game with Critical Failures, and check out our new hardcore WoW channel, Veldcrest, where we stream hardcore WoW and try and see what we can do out in that wonderful, exciting world of permadeath. Thank you, and thank you for giving a Spooky Kid a chance.